What if the strongest version of you is still built on the ruins of a girl who was never allowed to cry? You made it. You've become who they said you should be. The capable one, the reliable one, the one who has it all together. But deep down, beneath all that strength, you still feel fragile. Not because you're broken, but because the girl you left behind is still waiting to be seen. And for many women, that journey begins with her. You don't remember when it started, when you stopped dancing in your room like no one was watching, because suddenly everyone was. When you stopped asking for what you needed and began hiding it behind "I'm fine." When you stopped trusting that soft, intuitive voice inside you and started listening only to logic. You've worked so hard to become a woman who's capable, calm, and collected. The kind who can handle anything, who doesn't need anyone. But sometimes, in the quiet moments, your soul whispers a different truth. Like when silence becomes unbearable and you don't know why. Like when someone loves you deeply and you sabotage it without understanding. Like when you finally have time to rest and feel absolutely nothing. This numbness isn't laziness. This overthinking isn't a character flaw. These moments of inexplicable sadness aren't weakness. These are traces, the echo of someone you used to be. She was vibrant, messy, wildly sensitive. She cried too much. She dreamed too loud. She felt everything so deeply it scared the adults around her. And when life told her she was too much, she learned to make herself smaller, quieter, safer. You didn't abandon her because you hated her. You did it because you thought it was the only way to survive. But here's what Carl Jung understood about the human psyche. We all carry a shadow. Not just the dark impulses we hide, but also the light we suppress because the world couldn't hold it. And for many women, that suppressed light is feminine energy itself. The part that feels, flows, receives, trusts. Not because it's weak, but because it's sacred. Take a breath right here. Just breathe. Notice what's stirring in you as you hear this. Don't judge it. Just notice. Let's talk about the mask you've been wearing. The one that smiles even when you're dying inside. The one that leads meetings, solves everyone's problems, keeps the whole world spinning. The one that collapses in the bathroom at 2 a.m., sobbing for reasons you can't name. That mask isn't fake. It was forged in necessity. You became strong because you had to. You stopped depending on anyone because no one came when you cried as a child. You learned the most devastating lesson a sensitive soul can learn. Your softness is a liability. So you built walls. You became self-sufficient. You turned your heart into a fortress. But that protection came with a price. Every time you silence yourself in relationships, every time you explain away your emotional needs, every time you overachieve just to feel worthy, it's not your adult self making those choices. It's your inner girl, still trying to earn the safety she never felt. Jung called this repetition compulsion, the unconscious drive to repeat childhood wounds in adulthood, hoping somehow to finally fix them. You attract the emotionally unavailable partner, just like the parent who is physically present but emotionally absent. You people please the cold, demanding boss, recreating the dynamic with the caregiver whose love felt conditional. You say, "I don't need anyone," while your soul is screaming for someone who can finally hold your tenderness without trying to fix it. You're not confused. You're not self-sabotaging. You're following a script written when you were too young to understand you had a choice. Let me tell you about Sarah, a brilliant 29-year-old marketing director who seemed to have everything figured out. She was the friend everyone called in a crisis, the daughter who never caused problems, the employee who stayed late and delivered perfect work. But Sarah came to therapy because she couldn't stop crying in her car after work. Every day, without fail, she'd sit in the parking garage and weep, and she had no idea why. "I should be happy," she kept saying. "I have everything I wanted." Through our sessions, we discovered that Sarah's inner girl had learned a devastating equation. Love equals invisibility. As a child, Sarah got attention only when she was helpful, good, or achieving something. Her emotional needs were met with "you're so mature for your age," or "we're proud of how independent you are." So she learned to be the helper, never the helped. The giver, never the receiver. Her success was real, but it was built on a foundation of a little girl who believed she had to earn love by disappearing her own needs. The tears in her car? They were grief. Grief for the child who was never allowed to just be held without having to perform first. This is what happens when feminine energy, the energy of receptivity, intuition, emotional truth, gets labeled as too much. You don't lose it. You bury it. You bury the part that wants to be cherished, not just admired. You bury the part that knows things without logical proof. You bury the part that needs softness, beauty, and connection to thrive. And then you wonder why success feels empty, why love feels terrifying, why rest feels impossible. It's because you're living as half of who you are. Every woman I've worked with can identify a moment, or sometimes a series of moments, when everything shifted, when she realized, with devastating clarity, that being herself was dangerous. It might have been dramatic, crying after a fall and being told stop being such a baby, expressing excitement about something and being shushed or mocked, showing anger or frustration and being labeled dramatic or too sensitive. Or it might have been subtle, reaching for comfort and finding no one available, sharing a dream and seeing disappointment or worry in a parent's eyes, asking for help and being told, "You're smart, figure out yourself." Sometimes it wasn't even about her directly. Maybe she watched her mother get criticized for being emotional. Maybe she saw her sister get teased for being weird or too much. Maybe she absorbed the message from media, from school, from the general culture that girls who feel deeply are problems to be solved rather than souls to be celebrated. But whatever form it took, that moment or those moments broke something fundamental inside her. From then on, she became who the world needed her to be instead of who she actually was. She learned to be mature instead of playful, logical instead of intuitive, strong instead of vulnerable, independent instead of interconnected. She traded her wildness for safety, her authenticity for acceptance, her aliveness for approval. And slowly, gradually, that sensitive, creative, deeply feeling little girl went underground. Not gone, never gone, but hidden, protected, kept safe by being kept secret. Jung wrote extensively about what he called the sacred wound, the idea that our deepest pain often becomes the source of our greatest strength and wisdom. But only if we're willing to face it, to understand it, to integrate it rather than simply trying to heal it or make it go away. For so many women, the sacred wound is the moment they learn that their feminine essence, their softness, their emotional depth, their intuitive knowing was somehow wrong, too much, inappropriate for the world they had to navigate. This wound is sacred not because the pain was good or necessary, but because it holds the key to reclaiming the very qualities that make life worth living. The ability to feel joy without reservation, to love without guarantees, to create without justification, to trust the wisdom that comes through the body and the heart as well as the mind. When that core part of you goes into hiding, when you learn to associate your essential nature with danger or rejection, you develop what psychologists call a false self, a version of you that can interface with the world safely. This false self isn't fake exactly. It's built from real parts of your personality, real skills and strengths and capabilities. But it's incomplete. It's you with your most alive, most authentic, most vulnerable parts edited out. The false self is the part that can function in boardrooms and at networking events and on dating apps. It can make small talk and manage conflict and present well to the world. But it can't access joy. It can't rest deeply. It can't receive love without immediately trying to earn it. It can't create without caring what others think. It can't trust the subtle knowings that come through intuition and feeling. And so you end up living a life that looks successful from the outside, but feels empty from the inside. You achieve things that should make you happy, but don't. You're surrounded by people, but feel fundamentally alone. You're busy all the time, but feel like you're not really living. Can you remember a specific moment when you learned that being yourself was dangerous? What did you decide about yourself in that moment? What did you decide you needed to become instead? This isn't about blame. The adults who gave you these messages were usually doing their best with their own wounds, their own fears, their own limited understanding of what it means to be human. But it is about recognition, because you can't heal what you can't see, and you can't integrate what you don't acknowledge. Here's something crucial to understand. Even though your mind might not remember all the details of how and when you learn to hide your true self, your body remembers everything. Your body remembers the tension of holding back tears, the constriction in your throat when you swallowed words you needed to say, the way your shoulders curved inward to make yourself smaller, less noticeable, safer. Your body remembers the hypervigilance of constantly monitoring other people's moods, the exhaustion of being responsible for everyone else's emotional state, the way you learned to breathe shallowly so you wouldn't feel so much. This is why healing can't happen only in your head. Your thinking mind can understand the patterns, can see the connections, can make all the logical sense in the world of why you're the way you are. But your body is still living in that original moment of danger. Your nervous system is still braced for rejection, still prepared to shut down or perform or disappear at the first sign that your authentic self isn't welcome. Healing means teaching your body, slowly and gently, that it's safe to be all of who you are again. So how do you return to her? How do you heal the split between who you became and who you've always been? How do you integrate the shadow that holds your most essential, most alive, most authentically powerful parts? Not by forcing, not by fixing, not by adding healing to your already overwhelming list of things you need to achieve and perfect, but by listening, by creating safety, by moving slowly and gently, the way you would approach any wild creature that's been hiding for a long time. Integration isn't about becoming someone new. It's about becoming whole. It's about welcoming back the parts of yourself that you had to send away for safekeeping and discovering that they've been there all along, waiting patiently for you to come home to yourself. If you're ready, if something in you feels called to begin this work, start here. Find a photograph of yourself as a child. One from before the split happened, if you can. Look for a picture where you can see that spark in your eyes, that aliveness that existed before the world taught you to dim it. If you don't have photos, or if looking at them feels too intense right now, you can close your eyes and try to remember yourself at that age. What did you love? What made you laugh? What did you dream about when no one was listening? Sit with her. Really look at her, or really remember her. Don't analyze what went wrong. Don't try to fix her story or figure out how to prevent the pain she was about to experience. Just see her. Just be with her. Notice her openness, her curiosity about the world, the way she moved through space like she belonged there, like she had every right to take up room and make noise and have opinions. Notice how she trusted that the world would catch her when she leaped, how she believed in magic and possibility and her own worthiness without having to earn it. And then, if you can, speak to her, out loud if possible, or silently if that feels safer. Say the words she needed to hear, but never did. I'm sorry they couldn't see how beautiful you were. I'm sorry they were afraid of your light, your feelings, your wildness. I'm sorry they didn't know how to hold all of who you are. But I see you now. I see how brave you were, how much you felt, how hard you tried to be good enough. I see the way you loved so completely, so freely, before anyone taught you that love was dangerous. I'm here now. I won't leave you again. I won't abandon you the way I had to before. You're safe with me. All of you is safe with me. Feel whatever comes up. Let it be messy. Let it be big. Let it be exactly as much as it needs to be. This isn't regression, it's reclamation. This isn't moving backward, it's integrating what was always yours. When you're ready, when you've spent some time just being with that younger part of yourself, you might ask these questions. What did I love before I needed to be useful? What made me feel alive, not just admired or approved of, but genuinely, electrically alive? What activities made me lose track of time when I was young? What dreams did I abandon because they seemed impractical or impossible? What parts of me did I learn to hide because they made others uncomfortable? The answers might surprise you. They might make you laugh or cry or both at the same time. Maybe you love to sing, but stopped because someone laughed at your voice. Maybe you were fascinated by mysteries and magic, but were told to be more practical, more realistic. Maybe you love to write stories or poems, but were steered toward useful subjects that would lead to stable careers. Maybe you were drawn to art, to dance, to theater, but learned that creative pursuits were frivolous, that they didn't matter as much as serious, important work. These aren't just childhood hobbies or abandoned dreams. They're breadcrumbs leading back to your authentic self. They're clues about what feeds your soul, what makes you feel most like yourself, what connects you to that sense of aliveness and joy that you may have forgotten was possible. Let me share another story with you. Lisa, a 32-year-old attorney who came to therapy feeling what she described as successful but completely empty. Lisa had everything she thought she was supposed to want. A prestigious job at a top law firm, a beautiful apartment in the city, enough money to travel and buy whatever she wanted. But she felt like she was sleepwalking through her life, going through all the motions without any real sense of purpose or joy. During one of our sessions, I asked her a question that stopped her cold. What did you love as a child? What made you feel most like yourself when you were little? For a moment, Lisa just stared at me, and then her whole face changed. Her eyes lit up for the first time since I'd known her, and she started telling me about the elaborate fairy houses she used to make in her backyard. I would spend hours on them, she said, her voice full of wonder at the memory. I'd collect leaves and acorns and little stones, and I'd make tiny furniture in rooms. I'd create these whole worlds, these magical places where anything was possible. I felt, she paused, searching for the word. I felt magical when I was doing that, like I was connected to something bigger than myself. Then her face fell. When's the last time you felt magical? I asked gently. She couldn't remember. She literally could not remember the last time she had felt that sense of wonder, of connection, of pure, creative joy. That weekend, something shifted for Lisa. She went to an art supply store, not for any practical reason, not because she had a project or a goal, but just because something in her was calling for color, for texture, for the simple pleasure of creating. She bought watercolors and brushes and thick paper that felt good under her hands. She went home, put on old clothes, and painted with her fingers like she was 5 years old again. She cried through the whole thing. Not sad tears, but released tears. The tears of a woman remembering what it felt like to create for the sheer joy of it, without worrying about whether the result was good enough or professional enough or worthy of anyone else's approval. That painting, abstract, imperfect, completely alive, now hangs in her office. Not because it's beautiful in any conventional sense, but because it represents something sacred. The moment she remembered that her worth doesn't come from what she produces or achieves, but from the simple fact of her existence, her creativity, her capacity for wonder. Your journey back to your authentic self doesn't have to look like Lisa's. It doesn't have to be dramatic or life-changing or Instagram-worthy. Your feminine energy, your capacity for feeling, creating, receiving, being, doesn't need to be loud or obvious to be powerful. It just needs to be welcomed back into your life. Here are some small acts of reclamation you might try. Put on a song that moves you and dance in your living room. Even if you feel silly, even if you think you can't dance. Buy yourself flowers for no reason other than they're beautiful and you deserve beautiful things. Take a bath by candlelight, not as a productivity hack or self-care obligation, but as a simple act of kindness toward your body. Write in a journal without trying to be insightful or profound. Just let your thoughts flow onto the page. Speak your truth in conversations, even if your voice shakes, even if you're not sure how people will respond. Trust your first instinct about people and situations, even when you can't logically explain why you feel the way you do. Ask for what you need without a detailed justification for why you need it. Let yourself cry when movies touch your heart, when songs make you feel something, when the world's beauty overwhelms you. Say no to things that drain you, even if you can't articulate exactly why they feel wrong. Say yes to things that light you up, even if they seem impractical or frivolous. These aren't small things. In a world that profits from your disconnection from yourself, from your willingness to perform rather than simply be, these are revolutionary acts. As you begin this work of integration, you'll probably encounter resistance. Part of you will want to dismiss this as silly, impractical, a waste of time that could be better spent on more important things. That resistance isn't wrong or bad. It's actually a protective part of you trying to keep you safe. It's the part that learned that vulnerability is dangerous, that being too much leads to rejection, that the only reliable source of safety is your ability to be strong and self-sufficient. Be gentle with that part. Thank it for trying to protect you. Let it know that you're not abandoning your strength or your competence. You're just making room for other parts of yourself too. And be patient with yourself as you learn to integrate these long-hidden aspects of who you are. You've been living one way for years, maybe decades. Your nervous system, your habits, your automatic responses, they're all going to take time to shift. There will be days when you feel like you're making progress, when you can feel yourself becoming more whole, more authentically yourself. And there will be days when you feel like you're back at square one, when the old patterns feel stronger than ever. Both are normal. Both are part of the process. Healing isn't linear, and integration isn't a destination you arrive at once and never have to revisit. It's a practice, a daily, moment-by-moment practice of choosing to include all of who you are and how you move through the world. Listen to me and really hear this. You are not lost. You are not broken beyond repair. You are not behind where you should be in life. You're not too much or too little or fundamentally flawed in some way that can't be fixed. You're not a problem to be solved or a project to be completed or a rough draft of a person who still needs massive editing before she's ready for the world. You are returning. You are remembering. You are coming home to yourself. The woman you are today, with all her strength, her competence, her ability to handle whatever life throws at her, she was never wrong. She was never a mistake. She was your survival strategy, your way of making it through a world that didn't know how to hold all of who you are. She's just tired of performing strength when what she really wants is to be held. Tired of solving everyone else's problems when what she needs is space to not have all the answers. Tired of being the one everyone can count on when what she craves is the freedom to be unreliable sometimes, to be human, to be soft. Tired of hiding the part of herself that still believes in magic, in love, in the possibility of being cherished for who she is rather than what she does. The inner girl you left behind all those years ago, she isn't your burden to carry or your weakness to overcome. She's your compass home. She remembers what you loved before you learned what you should love. She knows what feels true in your body before your mind calculates what seems smart or safe or socially acceptable. She trusts before she has proof. She hopes before she has guarantees. She loves before she knows if it will be returned. This isn't naivety, it's wisdom. The kind of embodied, intuitive wisdom that our culture dismisses because it can't be measured or quantified or sold in a course or captured in a productivity system. It's the wisdom that knows which people feel safe before you've analyzed their credentials. The wisdom that can sense when something is wrong, even when everything looks fine on the surface. The wisdom that knows what your soul needs, even when your mind can't make sense of it. Your feminine energy, your capacity for feeling, for flowing, for receiving, for being rather than constantly doing, doesn't need to be louder to be powerful. It doesn't need to compete with masculine energy or prove its worth in a world that's structured around masculine values. It doesn't need to justify its existence or apologize for taking up space. It just needs to be safe again. And that safety, that fundamental trust that all of who you are is welcome in the world, it starts with you. It starts with you choosing to see your sensitivity as a superpower rather than a liability. It starts with you trusting your intuition even when you can't explain or defend your knowing to others. It starts with you receiving love, help, beauty, rest without immediately trying to earn it or pay it back or prove you deserve it. It starts with you allowing yourself to want things, to need things, to hope for things without having to justify why you're worthy of them. Carl Jung wrote, "Wholeness is not achieved by cutting off a portion of one's being, but by integration of the contraries." So welcome her back, all of her. The girl who laughs too loudly at her own jokes and doesn't care who thinks she's too much. The girl who cries at commercials and sunsets and songs that remind her of something beautiful she can't quite name. The girl who still believes that people are fundamentally good, despite all the evidence to the contrary. The girl who dares to need things, to want things, to ask for things, to hope for things even when hope feels dangerous. The girl who creates for the joy of creating, who loves for the joy of loving, who feels for the joy of feeling, regardless of whether any of it produces something useful or impressive or worthy of other people's approval. Because here's the truth our culture doesn't want you to know: healing your inner girl, integrating your shadow, reclaiming your feminine essence. This isn't about becoming weak or dependent or impractical. It's about becoming whole. It's about accessing the full range of your human experience, the full spectrum of your power. It's about recognizing that your tenderness is not the opposite of your strength. It is your strength. Your vulnerability is not the opposite of your power. It is your power. In a world that teaches women they have to choose between being strong or being soft, choosing both is revolutionary. In a culture that rewards emotional numbness and calls it stability, feeling deeply is an act of resistance. In a society that profits from your insecurity, your constant striving, your belief that you're not enough just as you are, loving yourself completely, including the parts you were taught to hide, is the most radical thing you can do. So here's what I want you to remember as you continue this journey. That little girl inside you, she's not your past. She's your present. She's the part of you that knows how to receive joy without earning it first. She's the part that can create something beautiful for no reason other than the pleasure of creating. She's the part that can love without guarantees, trust without proof, hope without evidence. She's been waiting patiently for you to come home to yourself, waiting through all the years of striving and achieving and performing, waiting through all the relationships where you gave more than you received, waiting through all the nights when you fell asleep exhausted from the effort of being someone other than who you are. And now, finally, you remember. You remember that you don't have to choose between being strong and being soft, between being capable and being vulnerable, between being independent and being interconnected. You remember that your emotions are not your enemies. They're your allies, your guidance system, your connection to what's true and real and meaningful. You remember that your feminine energy is not something to transcend or overcome or manage. It's something to reclaim, to celebrate, to trust. This is your invitation, not to become someone new, but to return to someone you've always been. Not to fix what's broken in you, but to integrate what was never actually broken, just hidden, just protected, just waiting for the right moment to emerge again. The integration of your shadow, especially the shadow that holds your rejected feminine power, your capacity for feeling and flowing and being. This is the path to wholeness. This is how you heal not just yourself, but the world around you. Because when you stop abandoning yourself, you stop abandoning others. When you stop hiding your light, you give others permission to shine theirs. When you reclaim your own worthiness, you create space for everyone around you to be worthy too. This is how you heal. This is how you become free. This is how you remember the truth you knew before the world taught you to forget it. You were never too much. The world was just too small to hold you. But you don't have to make yourself smaller anymore. You can expand a world instead. You can create spaces where all of who you are is not just welcome, but celebrated. You can return to her. And in returning to her, you return to yourself. If this stirred something in you, if you recognize yourself in this journey, if you feel that inner girl stirring back to life, share this with someone who needs to hear it. And if you're ready to continue this work of integration and healing, to explore what it means to live as your whole, authentic self, I'd love for you to stay connected by subscribing. Your complete self, including that beautiful, sensitive, wildly alive inner girl, is welcome here.